Now Hear This is a music review podcast and is not directly affiliated with any artists or album projects discussed on the show. Think of us like your record collection come to life. Well, except for those Vanilla Ice records. Turns out you really just liked David Bowie.
You got a record of your favorite songs. You got an hour and it won't take long. You got a pair of brand new friends. You got a ticket, gonna stick to the end. I said now hear this. Now hear this. Now hear this show right now. And we just tried to make a fun record.
Fun record you could maybe play at a party.
Lots of silly sounds.
God's head in their deli case. Oh, sweet angel, angel, bearded face. A paper-mache parade on at night. It's what you're doing with no sunlight. Tropical, icy land. Tropical, icy.
And I play the guitar, the electric guitar.
I sing mostly.
Welcome back to Now Hear This.
Now hear this.
Song of mine,
Now hear this.
which I have to hold myself back from completing.
Every single time, right? So this is what, episode 3?
Episode 3, yeah.
So if you haven't figured it out by now, Paul and I love Paul McCartney and the Beatles. And one of Paul's, would you call it an unreleased song?
I mean, it was released in radio circulation,
Right.
so yeah, it's a song, it's a little jingle. How about we call it a jingle?
One of Paul McCartney's jingles is called Now Hear This, and we just ripped it.
Yeah.
Just took it.
Just took it. Yeah, it was to introduce each individual Ram song, and there's a boot out there where you can just listen to them all in a row and
Oh, and
gouge
I
out
have.
your own eyes
And I also have.
and ears.
I'm blind as I'm
The eyes
recording this.
The eyes was a mistake. That was like...
Really took it one step too far.
So every episode, as you faithful listeners know, we exchange an album every episode, one that means something or one of us enjoys, and share it with the other one. We sort of get a new take on the album with fresh ears, as well
right.
as our old stale take, and then you, the listener, can make up your own judgment and listen to it for yourself. So this week we have one that I'm really excited about because this is an album that really spoke to me during some of those lost years. You know, we all have those lost years. Ryan, when were your lost years?
I think I'm in them right now.
You're still lost.
No, I know what you're saying. Definitely somewhere in college, I got lost for a bit. And then when I went to New York the first time, I definitely got lost.
New York will do
there. Yeah, the first 2 years of New York. I don't really remember. And I think it is just because of the information density in the city. It's just what's all happening.
Yeah.
And so to cope with that, you're having a few drinks, and then to cope with that, you're not really sleeping, and then you're back at work, and it's just this fun cycle.
Yeah, and you're still learning how to be an adult. I mean, we're about the same age, you know,
Yeah.
so we were in our 20s and figuring out what it is to be an adult. And I considered my whole time after college, maybe 5 or 6 years after college, like college 2.
Yeah.
Where I
Right,
was treating
yeah.
it like college, but I was working.
Yeah, you're learning on the job.
Right. So anyway, that is a long way of saying I found this album called EP by the Fiery Furnaces in that sort of tender time period. It came out in 2005, but I found it somewhere around 2007, 8 in that region.
Yeah.
And it really spoke to me at that time and became one of my favorites, and I still spin it to this day. It's a weird album
Yes.
by a weird band.
Oh, yeah.
And a weird set of circumstances, which makes it not even really an album, sort of.
Oh, yeah, it's named EP.
Well, it's named EP, but it's album length, but it's not really an album because it's a collection of singles, really.
Right, yeah.
So Fiery Furnaces are a two-piece indie band formed in 2000 in Brooklyn, although they're from a place called Oak Park, Illinois.
Oak
which
Park!
Is out,
Woo!
yeah, outside Chicago.
Outside Chicago, right.
So what's Oak Park like?
It's, you know what it sounds like in the music. It's like a suburb of Chicago. You know, I think the reason I relate to this record like you do, but maybe for a different reason, is that I grew up in the similar circumstances that these two did. And so they're brother and sister?
Brother and sister.
Brother and sister.
Eleanor and Matthew Friedberger. And yeah, they're siblings, and they came up outside of Chicago and then I guess moved to New York like many of us did.
As one should.
Yeah, and put together this band. And so they really rode the wave of the indie garage revolution of the turn of the millennium, because you had, as Ryan knows, I'm a big fan of the White Stripes, and I think they were the big people leading the charge into a return to roots kind of rock and roll,
absolutely.
along with bands like the Strokes and to a lesser extent people like Jet and things like that. But
To a much lesser extent.
But you have the Hives and you have all these others. It's a roots revival almost, because they're responding to, there's this time period after Kurt Cobain kills himself where no one really knew what to go do with rock and roll. And then we suddenly found out what we could do with it, which is bring it back to the 70s.
Just go back, man.
So what Matthew and Eleanor do, as opposed to like the White Stripes do, is Matthew and Eleanor take it back to the 70s, but in the more proggy 70s.
100%.
So they've got this real experimental aesthetic, and I think it's unfair that they get lumped in so much with the garage rock revolution, although, you know, you could make an argument that it is spiritually a part of that return.
We like how Blondie is part of the new wave. Like, she was definitely, not she, the band, you know, Debbie Harry. I'm not saying the lead singer of Blondie is named Blondie. Oh, come on, man. Do you even know anything about music? You think you're a big shot with a podcast? Oh, God, there's Bruce. Bruce is back. And you don't even know anything about a podcast, man. Nothing like referencing cartoon mice this early in
Oh, my God, yeah.
in a show.
Wow.
So there were bands in the new wave. The Talking Heads, is that exactly the forefront of new wave? That's more art rock to me. You had somebody like Elvis Costello or the Cars or even Ian Drury and all of those bands that were the vanguard, the Talking Heads. It's all different slices. The Fiery Furnaces to me is kind of like a Talking Heads style group. When you're talking 70s and maybe some early 80s influences because of the synthesizers and how abstract those lyrics are.
It's all to serve a theme and all to serve an emotion. They're not doing it just so they can out-weird the next guy. They're doing it to paint a picture. It's almost like impressionist rock or something. Yeah, I use Talking Heads a lot, and when I talk about, like, right now, I think we're in kind of a newer wave. We talked about this a little bit before.
Yeah,
but
newer wave, right.
A lot of bands, I think, are taking cues from what Talking Heads are doing, and Matthew and Eleanor Friedberger were for sure doing it in this sort of turn of the millennium time. So it's a little unfair, as we say, to call them an indie rock band, but they are, for all intents and purposes, that. I think LCD Sound System is kind of a band that grew out of this kind of thinking, perhaps, or came up around the time of this sort of thinking.
Sure.
And you could probably put Friedberger into a similar category, or the Friedberger siblings, I should say, into a similar category. They got signed to Rough Trade Records in 2002. Actually, it's funny. Critics of their early work drew a lot of comparisons to Brian Eno, which I know you like.
I love Brian Eno. And now that you say that, I definitely see where that comes from. A lot of his earlier records, not the records he's making now, which are purely instrumental, for the most part. There's a few vocal records still popping around here and there. They are pop songs with pop instrumentation, but then all of a sudden it'll be something out of the blue, like Dead Finks Don't Talk.
Yeah.
It starts kind of normally, and then it'll be like, oh, hey, ho, hey, ha, hey, ha, ha. These weird, like, and those are like deep voices, high voices, weird synthesizers out of nowhere, and then it's back into a pop song.
Yeah.
There are these I wouldn't want to say verses. It's like a song suite, kind of like the Todd record that we talked about, where all these weird little things are combined into one song. So Brian Eno, in the studio, he uses this thing called the oblique strategies. Have you heard of this?
No.
So it's a box. Well, that's how you can buy it. It's a stack of white cards, and on each card, there's just a phrase like, there is no such thing as a failure, or embrace the unknown. So it's these random little phrases.
Yeah.
I don't know if those are actually two of them. I should pull the deck out. And he makes production and songwriting choices with these random twists and turns, giving him direction. And that...
What?
Yeah, exactly.
Can you buy that at like a store?
I have it. Hold on. Let me go get it.
Hold on. Now, while Ryan's out of the room, we're going to talk just a lot of shit. I'm talking about actual literal shit.
I found it.
You found it. Now I'm opening it up
Behind the
here.
whiteboard out of any... It's like, what a creep.
So did he wrote all these?
He wrote those with a few other people, but it's credited to Eno.
And so what he does is he just takes out one of these cards. Are there sections? Consider transitions.
Okay, so if you're stuck in the song, if you're in the studio, if you're songwriting, you don't know where to go, you pull those out. Okay, we shift this way. Okay, this is how we make these production choices. You leave it to chance.
Wow. All right, so start singing a song. Make one up on the fly.
We are here in the recording times.
What to
everybody.
Just carry on. Gardening, not architecture. Abandon normal instruments. Don't be frightened to display your talents.
Oh, say, can you see?
Breathe more deeply. Remember those quiet evenings?
I do.
This has been fun.
So whoever's listening, take that. You can turn that into your own song. I would love to hear that little long note I sang, resampled like in Ferris Bueller.
Yeah, I'm putting these away.
Put those away.
Yeah.
I don't know if we wrote a hit. We'll return.
What were we even talking about?
So we were talking about Brian Eno. And so what just happened? That sort of is an experience you have when listening to Fiery Furnaces or Eno, where you're not really sure what's going to come next.
It's compartmentalized. All of the songs almost are suites in a way, and they treat them as such. But when every one is a suite, I'm not sure it is a suite. I think it's just a style.
Right, yeah.
So I think we're going to talk more about Brian Eno later in this podcast.
Yes, we'll come back to the Eno.
So just to wrap up a little more background here on the Fiery Furnaces, they did go on a hiatus in 2011, and Eleanor Friedberger and Matthew Friedberger released solo records. Now, I love Eleanor's solo records. Mm-hmm. She put out one last year, which was just phenomenal. But all her records are great. They lose the weirdness a little.
Yeah, the weirdness is absent for the most part.
They're still quirky, but they're more straightforward. I love her songwriting because it's and we'll get to that in the track by track here. But it's like slice of life songwriting. Mm-hmm. She talks about putting on her sneakers and going for a run, and that's when she does her best thinking.
Yes,
which is they're just little things you get in everyday life that not everybody points out.
Right,
or would think to point out in a song. So you also get a little Beale influence in their sound, which I think may be one of the reasons why I responded to them. They actually do a killer version of Norwegian Wood. And by killer, I mean it sounds like it was composed by a killer of humans.
Oh, no.
Like someone who kills humans orchestrated it.
Yeah, I understand. I can't even look you in the eye right now.
Like a murderer.
Long, hard gaze.
So let's talk about the album itself here. It is called EP, confusingly. It is not an EP. It is an album, but it's not really even an album. It's more of a collection. It was released in January of 2005, and it was their third release of this size, I guess you'd call it. It is often omitted from the band's canonical 7-album discography just because no one knows what it is. Is it an EP? Is it an album? Is it a collection? It's kind of all three. Yeah. Because it's called EP.
Well, so Elvis Costello had a record called Taking Liberties that was exactly more or less what this is, where Elvis, I know, not everybody loves Elvis Costello. I got a lot of, boo, you like Elvis Costello? He's not that great. I'll get to this when we talk about Randy Newman.
Yeah.
Even Randy Newman didn't think Elvis Costello was that great.
He's a divisive figure.
Well, so am I guess. So, Taking Liberties, it's this LP. Elvis would write a song that was the same title as the LPs that he was working on, but he would rarely put them on the album. And so he was just
This is crazy.
He is a little crazy. He was putting out all of his music, and then they just took them all the singles, all the B-sides, all the lost tracks, and they put it out as a record.
Yeah.
But nobody that is an Elvis Costello fan
considers
it a record.
I'm gesturing over to Cold Cuts right now.
Oh yeah, I got it in a frame down there.
There's a little Cold Cuts with that, but Cold Cuts is more like unreleased stuff. This is more like past masters.
Right.
In a way.
Yes. That's a great analogy, yes.
Past masters.
Which, for people who are unfamiliar, was when in the advent of the compact disc, all of the Beatles singles and B-sides were compiled into 2 volumes called Past Masters, Volume 1, Volume 2, something like that.
It's like where the only time I heard the Inner Light.
Or Old Brown Shoe, or like stuff that would have faded completely into obscurity or not been touched up.
Right.
Got touched up. So Inner Light's great. Great song.
Both Old Brown Shoe and the Inner Light. Great tracks.
Both George tunes. Anyway, so this is a compilation of singles and B-sides. I found on the internet it says plus 2 new tracks. I think that's wrong because I found instances of all but one used on various singles over the years. So some thought that this particular project was a response to the Fiery Furnace's previous efforts being received as inaccessible.
Okay.
Particularly their 2004 concept album, Blueberry Boat.
That's a great one, though.
Yeah, it is good. If you're into their brand of storytelling, like I think you're going to dig pretty much everything they do. I will say this. They are not the most welcoming band to a new listener.
Chief Inspector Blanchflower, isn't that on that one? Like 9-minute song.
You have to kind of subscribe to their newsletter to really get into that.
Is that a Simpsons reference?
It is.
Okay, good.
And so I didn't, actually. I don't even know if they crossed my radar because I wasn't just thinking in those terms at that time.
Yeah.
But my most fun in doing the little sort of light research I did on this was reading the critical reviews of the time because the Fiery Furnaces turned into critics yelling at their readers.
Wow.
And I have some
please
pull quotes here. Okay, so this is the best one. All right, I'm gonna lead with the best one.
Well, that's a mistake, but go ahead anyway.
Let's front load this. Let's front load it with the good stuff.
Yeah.
Blueberry really caused this divide, and there's an excerpt from Pitchfork's Rob Mitchum's review of the album Blueberry Boat that sums all of this up.
Oh boy.
Okay, I'm done being a nice guy about this. If you don't like Blueberry Boat, I don't like you. It's no longer a matter of taste, other than the fact that I have good taste, whereas you, Fiery Furnace haters, do not. You don't have time to take in the full sweeping grandeur of Blueberry Boat's 80 minutes. I have no respect for your calendar priorities. To those who find their multiple movement symphonies and keyboard fetish arrangements overcooked, I feel only loathing, utter disdain, and approximately 1 tablespoon of pity. And for the few of you that cannot handle the frenetic uber medley that is the Fiery Furnace's live set, I want to make provocative documentary films about your inept and offensive taste and take them on the festival circuit.
All right, so there was not a mistake to lead with that. I thought you were speaking hyperbole. That is amazing.
That's a review.
Yeah.
From Pitchfork.
You like my writing? Well, fuck you.
Right. That was how they led their review of EP, because the thought behind EP was like, okay, idiot. You didn't like Blueberry Boat, idiot. Here's this accessible thing, idiot. Yeah. So, some more fun facts. This album was mastered by Joe Lambert, who also remastered Klaatu's 1981 opus, Magenta Lane.
Would you be surprised if I've heard that? Because I have.
I know you have.
And I like it, actually.
Klaatu, may be mispronouncing that.
I don't think so. I think that's right.
I love them because there was a brief shining moment in the mid-'70s where people thought they were the reunited Beatles.
Calling occupants of interstellar planetary craft.
I love the song Holiday.
Yeah, Holiday's good.
I take a holiday.
Oh, yeah, that's good. Sub Rosa Subway, I'm a big fan of. There's actually a section in the middle of that where there's this drum breakdown. I know you're impressed, all of you, right now.
Well, I was impressed.
And so you are. Just listen to Klaatu, their first couple albums.
Yeah.
I think like the third or fourth. Skip those.
Sure.
But what you're talking about is good.
It's hitting that ELO-ish proggy vein, which is to say the more commercially digestible proggy kind of thing. As we've talked about before on this show, I am not a prog rock person, although the more albums I'm listening to by bands like this, the more I'm thinking deep down, I think I maybe swallowed that watermelon seed a long time ago, and it's
starting to bloom.
It's blooming, yeah. So last little fun fact about this album, there's 3 special thanks. Can't really find a lot of credits on this album, particularly because they're all pulled from singles. And so each of those individual credits is beholden to the single packaging having extensive credits on it, which doesn't really happen all that often.
Right.
But they do give a special thank you on the album EP to Nicholas Vernis, David Muller, and Tashi Yano. Nicholas Vernis is a French record producer who worked a bunch with the Fiery Furnaces as well as with Animal Collective and Deer Hunter and the War on Drugs and some others.
Yeah, it's right in that era. So it was like end of college into the real world for me.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is what people are making now? I can't just talk about the Beatles forever.
Some make a fine living doing that.
That's a good point.
David Muller worked with the band on Blueberry Boat as an audio engineer, computer editing, drums, engineering, and mixing, and Tashi is a bass and keyboard player. So those are all 3 people who contributed to the band.
Got it.
I started a tradition the last couple episodes by offering some overall thoughts.
This is my favorite part of this whole show.
Some overall thoughts on this record. I only have 3 for Fiery Furnaces, but my first is hook masters who hate their own hooks.
Okay.
Raffi, if he were writing down the songs shared with him by the son of Sam.
Oh, Raffi.
Or what the devil on P.T. Barnum's shoulder hears when he falls asleep at night.
Oh, my. So this is a very calming album.
But there's a circusy quality
For
to
your
it.
children, yeah.
It's whirly, it's roly-poly, it goes all over the place.
A lot of the tones are really dialed in now. It's like it's hi-fi 70s. It's like what the 70s would have sounded like if they had digital technology.
Yeah, sure. So let's get into the album itself. We'll start with the track by track here. We have the opener being Single Again.
I married a man, oh then. I married a man, oh then. I married a man, he was the plague of my life. Oh, and I wish I was single again. I wish I was single again. Cause when I was single, my pockets did jingle. And I wish I was single again.
A couple of puns to point out here.
Yeah.
This was literally a single.
Yes, it was.
And the next 3 songs were all B-sides from this single. So it is literally Single Again and again and again. It is delightfully deranged, I will say. A bizarre album opener choice on a record with tons of better openers. But it's one that grew on me.
So I remember buddies of mine. I was in a band in college. We were called Real Lunch. Band broke up.
Hey, I love that.
Real Lunch, yeah. And
that's really good.
Okay, shut the hell up. No. You actually like that name?
I love it.
Okay, that's what we played the Metro a couple times, and a guy named Max, a guy named Jake, a guy named Brian, and myself. I played the keyboards, the piano and synthesizer. And so Max and Jake had found this band, and I remember they brought this specific album in. You know, when you're in a band, it's you're always looking for stuff and then bringing it to your boys. Kind of like what we're doing here is basically a band. Hey, what do you think of this? And this whole album got me. But I only heard it a couple times and put it away until you asked me to listen to it again.
Yeah.
And I could not believe that it was as good, if not better, than I had remembered it being. Because some of that music you hear in that Lost Weekend you're talking about, you go back to, you're like, I don't think this is that good. Like, I was a big Ben Folds fan, like, big time, as big as I get. Now I go back to some of those albums and songs, I'm like...
Or the aforementioned Jet. We got excited about these things at the time, and then you think back, and they're fine.
Yeah. Move Your Feet by Junior Senior.
I love Junior.
Yeah, I love that. But I haven't heard it since then. Is it as good? I don't know.
I don't listen to them sort of actively anymore, but it's so funny. It's a little bit of a tangent, but them, and we mentioned Scissor Sisters in the last couple episodes, they were part of this sort of disco revival at the same time as the garage revival, almost the sequel to Funky Town in a lot of ways, like just Funky Town whoever
Turned Up.
Yeah, Turned Up.
I don't feel like dancing. I like that one.
I love that. Anyway, so one thing I didn't mention in the overall review of this album is that they're like, okay, idiots, you didn't like all their concept albums, idiots. Well, this one doesn't even have a concept, idiots.
Idiot.
So it sort of does a little.
Yeah, I would say that.
Yeah, more of like a motif. But this song is actually a rewrite of a traditional American folk song.
I didn't know that until this morning when you sent me that video and I watched it and I was mesmerized for 4 minutes, whatever it was.
So I didn't know it either. And that comes up actually a couple of times in this. Single Again is, as I say, a traditional American folk song, traditionally sung by males who sing about wives leaving them. And I think one of the verses is about the dude's wife dies and he laughs till he cries. And then later he goes to the funeral and dances Yankee Doodle.
Well, who doesn't at a funeral? I thought that was after the macaroni salad.
The better funerals probably have a little Yankee Doodle dancing.
And now the Yankee Doodle dancing in the atrium. We'll let the widower lead.
This song is dark, but really funny. She talks about, I wish I was single again. I wish I was single again. Because when I was single, my pockets did jingle. Oh, I wish I was single again. So that's saying I had more money, I was happier. And then with every verse, she gets into a new relationship with someone who beats her to the point of almost killing her. And then either he dies or they divorce or whatever it is. And then she's single again. She's happy. And then she gets back in to another relationship where the guy beats her again, which contrasts with the original intent, which is more like the guy being like, ugh, this fucking woman.
Yeah, it's definitely darker than that when you flip it.
But it's cool because it points out a female perspective on that sort of old ball and chain style of like misogynistic, like, ugh, you know, that kind of thing. So I think it's really clever and it definitely sort of like deranged. It starts with this ominous synth that like swirls around and it feels really unnerving.
For a while, like a minute or more.
A long time. What a weird choice, A, for a single, which was released in 2004, but B, for this opener. Wow. Like, crazy.
Well, so now that you say every verse she's getting beaten, right? And then she enters into a new relationship and you're talking about the band, my first thought to that is she's talking about recording and releasing a record. So they're putting a record out, they're putting a record together, and they put it out, and they're getting stones thrown at them.
Yeah.
1, 2, I don't know, was this number 4 in the 7?
Third.
This would be 3? Okay, so 1, 2, 3 albums, and you're getting abused. So maybe this whole album is a big kind of screw you guys sort of thing.
Well, it's funny.
Idiot.
It's funny you say that because apparently this single was released in response to that. The digestible sound.
Blueberry Boat single, is that what it was meant to be? Or
it is after Blueberry Boat. So this one's 2004 and it's before they collected them all.
Got it.
But they put a lot of songs together for this. So I think it could very well be a response to her critics. I keep saying her because I love Eleanor solo stuff so much that I always think of her. But Matthew actually adds a lot to this band, and it is drastically different with him at the helm as opposed to her solo stuff. But this one blends into the next track, which is Here Comes the Summer.
I love this song.
Yeah, it's good. When I was trying to describe this song before, like while not listening to it, I wrote, the meh parade continues. That's what I wrote. But actually, it's a nice little tune that hums along. And while I find it to be somewhat forgettable compared to some of the other stuff on the record, it actually really is a hooky little number.
Very hooky. And the whole she repeats the word remember a lot.
Yeah.
Which reminds me of, obviously, Lennon.
Yeah.
Right? Remember, that's two completely different things.
No, but I hear you. Yeah.
The synthesizers are great on the record. The piano moves it around. This is why I think this album is so excellent, because I didn't realize that the first 4 songs were a single. That makes so much sense. Like the first 4 or 5 songs just cruise.
Yeah.
Like, okay, yeah, I can deal with this. This is excellent.
Yeah. This was a B-side, as we said, to Single Again. And I just wrote this little phrase here. December dark at 6 o'clock. Remember, the freezing wind gives you a shock. Remember, it's an exercise in boiling the seasons down to little snippets of imagery, all of which are communicated, I think, expertly through Eleanor's phrasing and her vocals, which is echoed and amplified by Matt's sort of bouncy guitar. Mm-hmm. And I love the way that they weave the music around the lyric, and the lyric are typically pretty damn strong, you know?
October damp on down the street, sodden leaves stuck to your feet.
Yeah.
Remember, you're right. It is. It's you're exactly correct.
So anyway, this, as you mentioned, it's a suite. This second track leads into track 3, Evergreen. And this one's cool. I think you and I came possibly at this from a different angle because, in my opinion, the record opens kind of weakly. Like, I don't really get engaged until the next track. I like it, but I don't love it until the next track. So Diffuser put it together a couple years ago, their list of the top 10 best Fiery Furnaces songs. It just comes back to like the snobbery that surrounds this band. But they put this one at number 5 of their all-time best songs. And
do you agree or disagree?
I don't know if I have an opinion. I'm just sort of interested to hear theirs. So they wrote, Evergreen, originally a B-side to Single Again and later offered up on EP, finds Eleanor Friedberger letting her voice do the kind of emoting her lyrics sometimes obscure. The song is about someone waiting for their time to come and always being ready despite constant misfortune. It's both optimistic and sad as hell, and Friedberger sings the weepy words like she is in tears. Matthew gets his moments as well, delivering a couple of guitar solos, and the final one sounds like it's performed on a nylon string garage sale find, and that seems appropriate given the plight of the song's narrator. Matthew gives the classical guitar a moment to fulfill its purpose, or perhaps we're reading too much into that.
Maybe. I think that's about right also. I love this one.
Yeah?
I guess you don't, but that's okay. Yeah, it's just, it sounds to me like they picked a Beatle, and I don't know which one.
Yeah.
And we're going to write a song in the style of one of the Beatles.
Sure.
So, and the I don't even know what any of these lyrics mean.
I was spreading the sheets to dinner all alone every night of the week, is what I wrote down as a little pull lyric from that.
So what is that? Yeah, exactly. What does that mean to me? I was wielding my axe drunk, whiskey at the bar every night, coming home out of the windshield of my car. Huh? It's cool imagery. It's surrealistic.
Yeah.
Dolly.
Well, I think, and this is going to come into play later in the record for me, but I think her lyrics reflect a sadness. And that's what I mean when I say sort of lost years, because even though I was getting to know my career and pouring myself into that, I was also pouring a lot more and maybe turning to drinking and smoking and doing some light drugs and things like that, and kind of losing my own
Tylenol, mostly like drugs. It was a real NyQuil problem.
Real Pepto-Bismol nightmare. But no, I felt myself a little lost at the time, and that's when this band jumped out to me, because I felt like her lyrics sometimes express that kind of wandery frustration at nothing in particular, just everything.
Oh, definitely.
As the reviewer mentioned, I love the solo, and we don't get a lot of guitar solos with this band, so when they happen, I get really excited. And so that leads into track number 4 here, Sing For Me. This is where I start to
this is where you're in.
Okay. Start to get into it here a little bit. This was another B-side for Single Again. They basically started with the album single, and then the next 3 songs are different B-sides. It's a sweet little hook,
Yeah. His voice is hit or miss for me.
Yes.
And this is the one where it misses. I like the other one.
Yeah.
This one I was like, I think I'm just so infatuated by Eleanor.
I know, me too.
that I'm like, I guess I get it. Make her go away before the next track, which is just, it blows my mind. But we don't have to get to that yet. Yet, Sing To Me, it's good.
Yeah.
It's not bad.
Yeah.
Is it my favorite song on the album? No.
It sets the table for me for the next run of songs, which I think is my favorite run of songs, because, what I like about how they treat their songwriting is she's got these lyrics and this beautiful vocal, and then they wrap the music around it like a blanket, like the piano kind of swirls around it a little bit, and it's just so sweet the way they treat that.
Yeah.
So this one kind of is like the chaser from those first 3, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And then that opens it up to, as you say, track 5, Tropical-Iceland.
Oh boy, here we go. I watched this music video about 35 times this week. And I don't know why. I love her. She's just cool and sad and sexy, and those bangs.
Those bangs.
And just how wacky that video is. Probably
like
made
a polar bear, right?
Polar bear. Yeah. She's got multiple outfit changes.
Yeah.
Not that I was paying attention. I was definitely paying attention. Yeah. It's just, take intermission at the movies, freeze outside for one quick smoke. Take a Klondike bar from the pop machine. Hey, it's ice cream, no, not Coke. In Tropical-Iceland. I don't know what that means, but I will subscribe to your newsletter. Holy shit.
Yeah, I just wrote my first note is just let the excellence begin. It's just so good. This song was released as a single in 2004. This one is one that did appear on another album. It's the only instance where we get an album track that pops up. And the album version of this song is slower. It's acoustic.
Paper mache, parade on at night. That's what you're doing with no sunlight in the tropical, icy land. Tropical, icy.
It's on the album Gallows Bird Bark. And it still works there, but I prefer the more commercial version
for sure
in this release. This song features Nicholas Vernus, who recorded the album in Rare Brook Room Studio and did its drum programming, which I was shocked to hear because it sounds like a live drum.
Yeah,
but
it does.
I guess it's a drum, I guess he must have played it. And
some people are good at that. It's all a skill set.
This made that diffuser list, coming in at number 8. And
only 8.
I know. They say it's light, inconsequential tone and almost sugary, but nevertheless appeals to the imagination thanks to clever turns of phrase and even a closing verse played backwards. It shows the band at their most accessible, and yet they remain endearingly anachronistic, especially by 2005 standards.
Yeah, so well, I think it's great. List or no list or 8 or 1 or whatever it is. I'll always think of this song when I think of the band.
Yeah, I think they're right when they say the most accessible. This sounds like a radio hit when you hear it. The hook is just, I was going to say the best on the album. I think it's one of the best on the album, but it just, I put this one on any time. I was listening to this album a couple times this week to prepare for this, and when it came on a run, I just broke out in a sprint because it fills you with energy. It's just so energized. So anyway, I love it when a song can wear different hats like this one. When a song is so strong that the melody can play in a couple different genres, I always really appreciate that. I'm thinking specifically of the St. Vincent song Slow Disco, which came out in 4 different versions, I think. Yeah. And there's like a fast one, a slow one, like a medium speed, and like a piano version. So I think that speaks to Eleanor's songwriting and just how great she is. I love the little breakdown in the middle with those drums and that sort of weird screechy effect that kind of wafts. I've seen enough stray ponies and puffins to get me through to the end of May.
Yes.
And just lastly here on this song, the backwards bits. Oftentimes when people use that stuff, I always find it to sound more like, I don't know, a dumb gimmick or pastiche on 60s sound.
Yeah. It's not great.
But
you're
here,
like, why are we doing it? Yeah, I didn't even recall it until you said it.
Yeah.
Because I thought it was just an effect.
Yeah, the whole rain kind of thing. So yeah, I don't know. I'm filled with such love for this song.
Yeah.
But it's not the song that got me into them.
Okay, which is? Is that on this record?
It is on this record, and we're not at it yet, but that continues the string of like, what is this band that I was hit with? So that brings us into track 6, Duffer St. George.
And I don't care. The chorus comes out of nowhere for me, where you're just like, where is this going? Where is this going? And then just big guitar. Of course you love this one. Big, like almost 90s style guitar.
Yeah.
Duffer St. George, and I don't care. I think that they were singing this in the back of a cab in England, like the lyrics sound. And they were like, oh yeah, let's record it.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know that. I didn't.
I mean, it plays on the theme discussion for a moment.
All right.
Jimmy Crack Corn and I Don't Care is what they're referring to here. Another American folk song. So we have sort of a through line. We have them taking little bits from traditional folk songs and weaving their own tracks around it. I say deranged a lot of my notes here, but just because they are, but the piano is deranged.
Yeah, that track specifically is.
Yeah, like a mad scientist kind of thing. And yeah, I don't know. I didn't have much to write on this other than I love it.
Yeah, and I like the little instrumental tag at the end of the track.
Yes.
Haunting sort of thing.
So that's a recorder, I think? Not a flute.
I don't know. It could be anything.
Sounds like a
It's not a tuba.
It's not a tuba.
We get paid no money to do this, folks. We are not 100% professionals.
That leads to track 7. This is my favorite on the record. It's the...
Oh, this is the one.
This is the
This
song,
is the song
that made me think, oh my God, I love this band.
Yeah.
It's called Smelling Cigarettes. Favorite on the record. It's my favorite by the band, and it's the only reason I decided to dig deeper. I think I found Smelling Cigarettes on LimeWire at the time.
Tell us, what is LimeWire?
LimeWire is where we used to get... Oh, I'm not going to do that.
We used to download MP3s. And if you got a 256 a K bits or higher, you struck gold.
Yeah, as was the style at the time.
As was this, I had my onion on my belt. I had my LimeWire on my belt.
So I went through a phase where I was living alone. I was in a basement apartment a couple miles north of New York. And I was still subscribed to Rolling Stone for some reason. And every month when I would get Rolling Stone, I would flip through the reviews and download on LimeWire a song from each of the albums reviewed to try and see if anything spoke to me at all. And this was one of them, and it's what led me to the band.
Okay. Wow.
And I fell in love with it. I thought it was so great. It reminded me of I Am the Walrus or something, where there's so many little bits that'll keep you interested 100 years later, right, is the quote. So this was a B-song to the song Crystal Clear in 2003. And I think the suite quality appealed to me the most, and each portion of the suite is perfect in its own way. The drums and the piano at the beginning are Beatlesque, I think, which is maybe one of the things that led me into the group a little bit more. But this is almost an overall note for the band. But for this song in particular, I think this is what the Dresden Dolls wished they were.
Right, okay.
If you're familiar at all with the Dresden Dolls.
I agree with that.
Dresden Dolls want to be this kind of like herky-jerky. We're like circus goths, and we wear makeup and stuff. But like Eleanor Friedberger and Matt do on this what they just never all the way kind of achieved.
Yeah. This is a spectacular track.
Yeah.
For that reason, and then also just the imagery she cooks up with the whole, hey, don't key that Camry.
Yeah, so I want to read that line because it's my favorite from the song. Now I'm in the clutches of my crutches. I'm laid up and I sip from my cup and I look outside. I think when she says crutches, I think she means booze, liquor, drugs, something like that.
Well, a lot of her lyrics pivot. They could be it could be 3 different things at the same time.
So that's why I read into it at the time.
Yeah.
And I see Christopher Hyde, who just got divorced, and there's a restraining order enforced, going in his ex-wife's garage, and I'm just drunk enough to open the window, yell out, "Gruff, don't you key that brand new Camry."
Yes.
And he gave me the cursor, damn, returning to the spot he was. Mind your own business, you, and I wag my finger, you're not doing what you're supposed to do.
I love it.
It's like Dylan almost. Like,
yeah. Cursor could mean like your pointer finger. Cursor meaning harsher.
I know.
Or did she write these or is it her brother? I don't know.
Pretty sure she
think
must. It's a joint effort.
She must have, with her solo careers, the lyrics are just as good.
It reminds me of like Donovan's imagery with Dylan's tooth. And so you get that.
Dylan's Tooth is the name of my new album or cover band for Bob Dylan.
His old snaggletooth. But no, you know what I mean, though, because Donovan is...
Now Dylan's Tooth!
His music can be such a piss in the wind at times. I love it, but it can be a little wispy. But it's got that musical quality to just how he's expressing each verse.
Yeah, I understand.
So anyway, this song really takes me back to a time in my life where a story like this may have happened to me, like something like that, like getting drunk and looking out a window and watching somebody key a car, something like that. It just takes me back to that place. So it's just perfect. It just perfectly captures a mood, time, all that stuff.
So you said it was a couple miles north of New York when you...
Yeah, I was in a town called Yonkers.
Oh, yeah, I know Yonkers.
Yeah, which is it was going to be the 6th borough, but then that fell through for reasons that are evident when you visit Yonkers.
Yeah. So you were there and you were working in Manhattan?
I'm working in Mamaroneck, which is further into Westchester. So I'm working in a very nice town, living in a very shitty town, in a basement apartment of a building run by a slumlord.
Oh, boy.
And my parents thought this was hilarious, by the way. They were just like, this little, like, I think my dad's only comment when he saw the apartment was like, hey, look, there's a hospital.
Good to know that you will survive when you get sepsis.
It was the most touch and go I think I've ever been in my life.
Well, it makes sense. And I'm not saying that to try to drag you through a difficult period of your life. A lot of those difficult periods in our lives make us who we are. I lived in a crawl space when I moved to Brooklyn, New York in 2008. Paid $700 a month for it.
Wow.
I did climb a 12-foot ladder. It's not a joke. I get to Grandin Havemeyer in Williamsburg. A friend, I don't even talk to her anymore, so I don't know if you can consider us even friends. She go, I'm staying in this place, a guy named Paul's place. I guess I like Paul's. It's just always...
We got the saint.
It's also a popular name. So...
Very popular.
I go in, it's old converted ballrooms, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, they're not bifurcated, but like quadricated, if that's even a thing. So it's 1/4 or so of an old Brooklyn ballroom, and the guys built, they're like little bedrooms to the one corner. So there's a bed on top and a bed on bottom. I'm like, oh, which one of these is going to be mine? He's like, oh, no. You're up the ladder. And then this rickety old silver ladder. And I'm climbing up, and it's... You can't stand, so I'm crouching in it.
Wow.
And there's like an old mattress. I'm like, can I swap the mattress out? And they're like, don't worry about that. I don't know how we're going to get a new mattress in. Okay, so you're laying a cloth over some old mattress.
My God.
But that was, looking back, those 3 or 4 months, whatever it was, that's like my favorite time of my life.
Really?
I had a suitcase. I had that. I had my job. It's when I started working for Atlantic originally.
Yeah.
And I lived in poverty effectively, but I paid out the tooth for it.
Out the snaggle tooth.
But without that, I don't think I would have, you're in that situation, you're like, I got to get out of this situation. And so it gives you that drive, and that's where I discovered what was that band? Animal Collective, and all of the stuff that kind of came right after this.
So we're talking, what, 2007, 6?
I moved there early 2008.
Okay, yeah.
But I got the job in 2007.
That's so wild.
It was insane.
I'm talking 2008 as well. That was exactly the same time I was, like, you and I were just at different parts of New York doing, sounds like something similar.
Very similar.
I got my big break in comics, and I was a working professional and pouring all of my life into it at the time.
You've given it all.
Because what else you have to do at that time other than get fucked up?
You can, I can go be a lawyer or a doctor. But you talk to lawyers or doctors, especially at that time, like, don't go into medicine. There's no money in medicine anymore. Every fucking lawyer I've ever talked to, except for a couple, I just want to punch them in the fucking dick. It's like their humanity gets tossed out the window. Oh, you can charge me $400 an hour, but you're not a person anymore. So anyway,
I didn't know.
What I'm saying to you is I completely understand why this is that track now, because it made me think of like, what was that moment for me? It was a crawl space in Brooklyn.
I was lucky I had a roommate that I got along with really well. We found each other on Craigslist, and we met and became really fast friends.
I had a Craigslist roommate like that too. This was when I lived on the Upper East Side, and I remember coming in, and there were just beer cans everywhere every day.
Yeah.
Like, are these new? He's like, oh, yeah. But he was like a banker or something.
Yeah.
And so that's just what it is in that city. It can be, so.
Anyway, this episode's turning into a therapy session for myself, I think. So to bring it back to the album here.
I'll send you an invoice.
All right, thank you. That leads into track 8, Cousin Chris.
Cousin Chris.
Somewhat forgettable for me. Not my favorite, but I like it. There's a lot to like.
The lyrics are bananas, like Barnacle Bills bound bonus bid.
Yeah, so this song is an exercise in rhyming.
Clearly.
And abrupt change. I never knew the lyrics to this. I looked them up. I'm just going to read the first stanza.
There you go.
Back the bus he cussed, spacesuits, blackened boots. Lad, little lad, he said, I've a tip for you. See, what about me? What about me? What about me? For $5, I walked him to his mom's, and on the threshold, he said straight and calm, see, what about me? What about me? What about her? What about me? Can't kiss cousin Chris. Could night. Turn off the light.
I remember that.
With what wise we wave, what wish it came true. See, what about me? What about her? What about me?
Yeah, so
Okay.
what? What? I mean, yeah, so this, I mean, on a record, when you're past track 7 or so, stuff like this pops up.
Yeah.
Okay, we have this, it's good enough. Let's get it out. Put it out.
So this one was B-side to Crystal Clear, 2003. And it reads like a B-side.
Yes, sir.
Some of their stuff doesn't. Like Smelling Cigarettes was a B-side too, and that one to me doesn't read about.
Yeah, that could have been an album track or even something bigger.
I love the blown out drum sound on it. It's got this like kind of crashy sort of effect to it. But yeah, not much to say about this one. Leads us to track 9, Sweet Spots. A little bright old ray of sunshine. Yeah. This was the B-side to Tropical-Iceland back in 2004. So talk about an A and a B. Tropical-Iceland and this one is like Sugar Rush. You know, like
I like this one because it's all a slice of Oak Park. You know, she talks about getting on the Lake Street L. For those of you who know Chicago, that's the elevated train. Okay. The Green Line, I think, connects Oak Park to Chicago, if I remember. And she's talking about, what was it, Brock's, is it how it's pronounced? So that candy factory, I don't know if it's still there. It might be abandoned as of now. But yeah, it was on Cicero. Part of it was used as a hospital and blown up in The Dark Knight. Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight. Because they shot all that stuff in Chicago. And it goes through other things. The Mars factory was in, I think it's still there too, in Galewood.
Wow.
In Oak Park. But yeah, that's what the whole song is about.
That's so funny. Sometimes these location-specific songs can read a little corny, but this one, me not knowing any of that, I just appreciated the imagery and the sound of the words.
Right,
It didn't hit me on that level, but
when you grow up close enough to it and you hear it, you're like, wait a second. Oh yeah, I know what she's talking about. It's kind of interesting.
We were talking about the White Stripes earlier. They have a song like that called Lafayette Blues, and Lafayette Blues is just them reading the French street names in Detroit. But he's saying it like he's talking French, but really he's just rattling off some of the shittier streets in Detroit.
Yes. Well, we're going to get to that on our next episode. A little foreshadowing for all 16 of you who've made it this far.
Yeah, Ryan has ruined my brain with the next one. But one more thing I'll say about this is it's got a Bruce Springsteen quality to it, which I really like. I don't think we've talked about Bruce before, you and I, but I love particularly early Bruce Springsteen. And this one,
of course.
This one's got that like Surf Factory kind of like good timey thing. And I love that there's a do-da, do-da, do-da,
oh,
do-da.
yes.
And it's off time.
Those background vocals, I love them.
Yeah, but like it doesn't sync up like it should. And so your brain is like reading something wrong about it.
Doesn't even sound like it was recorded properly.
Yeah. And then that solo at the end, it's like Taxman, but somehow with even more acid, like amplified by this buzzing synth and this wacky echolocation. I feel like I'm trying to fuck a dolphin's blowhole.
Whoa!
It's like, whoa.
I love that.
So yeah, that's what I have about Sweet Spots.
You know, dolphins actually go after people, right? Have you heard about the...
There was some kind of experiment, right, where somebody dropped a bunch of acid and tried to talk to dolphins, and they wound up realizing that all dolphins have a foot fetish.
Wow.
Which makes sense. They don't have them.
Yeah, exactly. You always want what you can't have.
Like legs and feet are the boobs of humans.
And that's the high-quality journalism you're going to get for the rest of this season on this show.
I did read about that.
Sweet Spots. What a great song.
Brings us to the closer of the album, Sullivan's Social Slub. Now, this one, I think, is I think it's the lone new track.
Okay.
On the record. So this is not a B-side, any of that. Sweet Spots was, as we mentioned, the B-side of Tropical-Iceland. So this one is all new, I think. I couldn't find it anywhere. I think it's a fantastic closer. It's another sweet, similar to Smelling Cigarettes, and it's another favorite of mine on the record. It's got a lot of strange rhymes similar to what we heard on Cousin Chris, but I think they're a little more realized here. So
yeah, I agree.
So we have, I'm just going to read some of these here. Brandy butterscotch, bartered and begged. Many Motherwell Mustard and Mugged.
Makes sense.
Lucy Liver Spots lied, and legged. Danny Dungarees digged and he dugged. So's on Saturday, say slips off a Sullivan social slub. Sup slide, nice it.
I think we can forgive you.
Need a nice ner and a nip and a nub.
Yes. I mean, maybe.
Sup slides over Sullivan's social slub. Candy Cumberland cookied and cleaned. Andy aspartaned assholed and ate.
Ugh.
Gary Guttergunk gathered and gleaned. Stripey Strippleford strippled 'em straight. So's on Saturday, say slips off a Sullivan social slub. Need a nice ner and a nip and a nub. Sup slides over Sullivan's social slub. I think she's saying, I think that's a sex thing.
Yeah, it sounds a lot like it. Vincent Vibraphone, Sally Summer Dress, Fanny Furza Frank, I wrote down. Seamus Sweaty Set. Oh, what's that reservation for? Oh, that's Sweaty Set. First name Seamus.
Party of one.
Party of one. I'll need a bucket though. So, but you're right. It reminds me of, they have a track called The Philadelphia Grand Jury. I think it's the album after it, and it's like the beta version of that song where they're headed towards it, and it's truly insane, and it's long. There's a big instrumental portion too, right?
Yeah, there's the piano. I just wrote is on fire here. The chorus piano, the bridge piano, it hammers, a mood, and it captures that. It's like it juxtaposes childlike wonder and adulthood dread in one package.
Yeah, really.
And you don't really get a lot of dreadful oboe on rock songs these days, but we end on a dreadful oboe.
The old dreadful oboe closer. We don't use this one too often, but...
Ryan Dillentooth, oboed and closed.
Sweaty sock Sally sipped and sank her sweet southern slip.
I really wish you wouldn't look me in the eyes and do that.
Yeah.
It's really...
I was just gripping the table.
Yeah.
Light knuckles over there.
Gotta grip it. And then we end on an awesome bass solo. That's just like, it's like this fuzz bass. It's really cool. So that is the album. Just... in closing here, Pitchfork once again remarked about this album, the band we love, but you love to hate. Skip the multi-part song cycles on this immediately accessible collection of singles, B-sides, and rarities. Okay, so this 10-track EP has an uninspiring title. Instead, the Friedberger Sibs saved their best ideas for their song. And my ending thought on this is, if this album was meant to offer new listeners a welcoming intro to the band, mission accomplished.
Yeah, I agree. Mission accomplished. This is a great little slice. I just can't believe it's 15 years old now. Or more, or whatever it is. It's crazy.
I know. Some of the songs are even older, because they're pulling from stuff from B-sides from 2003. Wow. Which is quite a ways back. But yeah, that's the Fiery Furnaces. So anybody who hasn't listened to Fiery Furnaces or Eleanor Friedberger's stuff, I would recommend, if you want a more commercial intro, there's that album they put out in the later 2000s, one of their later records called Widow City, I think it's called. That one's really good and way more accessible. That one's like a 70s rock album.
Yeah, I like that one a lot.
Yeah, and then her solo stuff is amazing.
All of it, especially 2011, the album that has My Mistakes on it.
Oh, I make a lot of playlists for myself because I'm 12 years old, and that song opens one, and I never skip it. That's how I judge I really like something.
Yeah.
I never skip it.
Never.
Ever. Yeah. There you go.
Fiery Furnaces.
Yeah.
Now heard this.
We now heard this. Is that how we're ending the show
I
now?
don't know.
We shouldn't do that.
Should not. We did it once, and it really didn't go over well. And that was just now.
It was just now. It landed pretty much with a thud.
It was a few 100 feet short of the runway, let's just say.
It was a real, whatever that plane's called that's been killing people.
There were no survivors.
None.
I don't think the black box even... Okay, we should stop.
All right, goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Do you have an opinion about the album we discussed today? Contact us at NowHearThisPodcast on Instagram, at NowHearThisPod on Twitter, Facebook.com/NowHearThisPodcast, or email us at NowHearThisOfficial@gmail.com. See you next time.
Now it's going.
Now it's going?
Oh, yeah.
Check.
We're good. Okay.